Hi, my name is Wendy Cooper, and
This is Beth Emmert.
we thought the next best thing, next to having coffee with you, would be having coffee without you. Here we are having coffee together as we spend so much of our time since the Lord has brought us together. When I first heard of the She Resounds event from a friend of mine about sharing a video of what we're passionate about, there were two things that came to mind, and one was my dear friend Beth Emmert, that it would be something we shared together, and the second thing was Lion's Roar, which is what we're going to be sharing with you about today. A little background is I met Jesus when I was 5 years old. I was under a piano bench. My parents were separated at the time, and my mom would sit and play the piano, and at night, all six of us kids cuddled up in a bed. And one night when she was playing, I just felt so drawn to the music, and she was singing about the crucifixion and about Jesus. And even at 5 years old, I knew that he died for me, and I needed to go to the sound. And I got out of my bed, didn't worry about getting spanked or getting in trouble, but I just knew I had to go. And I just crawled right underneath the piano bench, and I just cried, and I closed my eyes, and I let the music just wash over me, and I saw Jesus on the cross, and I just fell in love with him at that point. And I'd love to tell you that the rest of the journey was easy for me, that I met Jesus and we lived happily ever after. But that wasn't the case. Life got really, really hard, and my very passionate relationship with Christ became distant. God became, something I was afraid of, something that was far off. My parents had a lot of issues. My dad was an alcoholic and an addict, and there was a lot of mixed messages. They were first generation Christians, and they didn't have all the tools. So I loved them a lot, and they did the best they could. But it was a long journey before I was 29 years old when I really met Jesus again, and he just completely wrecked my life. At the time, I was divorced from my husband. I had 2 kids with him. We were married for 8 years, and because of my brokenness and his brokenness, our marriage just fell apart in a very painful way that seemed impossible to overcome. But when I really radically met the Lord, and he just delivered me, and I got filled with his Spirit and started leading worship at the same time, which he brought me back to my first love of him and music, my life just started to fall back in place. And I'm happy to say that my husband and I are remarried for 3 years now, and it is a totally miraculous story. But moving on to Lion's Roar, I had to share the history because it's such a big part of how Lion's Roar came to be. Shortly after I was really saved, I just knew that the passion of my heart was kids, and I knew that I wanted to do everything I could to hopefully help other kids not go through what we went through.
Yes.
And Beth is going to share a little bit of her story. But so that's how Lion's Roar was started. And what it is we meet once a week, and all children from all walks of life and churches are welcome. It's free. No one gets paid. We come because we loved God and Jesus, and we just want to impart to these children what we now know, and hoping that they won't have to go through what we went through, and hoping that when they do go through those bumpy things in life, because they know his presence and they know who he is, not just words on a page, but they know how to feel him, touch him, breathe him in, sing him out, that they'll just know who they are in him. Mm-hmm. So that is a little bit about me and about how Lion's Roar got started, which is what we're sharing with you about today. And Beth's going to share her story too.
I, like Wendy, I got saved at a very young age when I was 5 years old. And I grew up in church, but I never had a real relationship with Jesus, not until college, when I went to Baylor University in Texas. After graduating Baylor, I became a music orchestra director in Dallas, but my heart passion was to be a full-time missionary. And after 6 years of teaching, the Lord allowed me to quit teaching live on support, go to Kansas City to the International House of Prayer, where I was a prayer missionary for 1 year. Then after that, I moved to Houston, Texas to be a part of an anti-human trafficking ministry where I helped minister to women on the streets, women in prostitution, rescuing them out of what's called the life. That was very rough, but in the midst of that time, I met a couple, Daniel and Amber Matthews, and they were involved with a ministry in Houston that God called to come to Yuba City, California. We all were like, where the heck is Yuba City? But I moved with them to Yuba City, where I met Wendy, and it was actually 3 years ago, pretty close to this weekend, that I met her. And that's a really cool story of how she had basically was praying for a violin teacher for her son and daughter. And I showed up the next weekend at church to play violin with the worship team. We got connected, and do you want me to share about? Okay. She had gotten involved with a principal at Linda Elementary. This principal was a Christian, and she wanted to bring violin and music back to the school. Linda is a low socioeconomic, impoverished city. Actually, much of like what I grew up in, out in the boonies of West Texas. We got together, and Wendy taught choir, and I taught violin for 1.5 years at Linda Elementary. Christian songs in a public school where kids are crying, saying, what am I feeling? I'm feeling something. And Wendy got to tell them about Jesus, and we got to minister to their hearts. And we did that for 1.5 years, and we realized that that was just the beginning of what we feel like God has called us to do. We feel called to take this ministry to the nations. Like Wendy said, we want to see kids be awakened in their destiny, where they don't have to go through the performance and the religion like she and I have had to go through. That they would know that they're loved, and they would know who they are, and they would express themselves in the arts, whether it be through worship, through videography, through writing, through dance, whatever it is that they do, that God created them to do. We want to see them released into that fullness at a very young age. Wendy is able to do that with choir. I do that with violin, but we see this growing and going out to the nations, that in every art form, kids would be released in ministry. So that is our passion. That is our vision, and it's a small seed of Lion's Roar right now, which you are going to see on the video with the kids.
So what we did for you this evening is we had the kids, not all of them, because we're actually on a Christmas holiday break for Lion's Roar. So next week we'll start back up again. But I called a few of them up, and they were able to come this evening. And so you're actually going to get to see them in action. And keep in mind, we meet once a week. This is our 4th year. Some of the kids are new this year. Some of them have been in since the very beginning. We have about 30 kids that gather weekly, 25 to 30. Tonight, you're just going to see a few, the ones that could make it. And also, we're in my living room. We usually meet at a church building, so there's tons of room. But we're in our living room tonight. So we just really hope you're blessed. More than anything, thank you for this opportunity to share a passion of our heart, and hope that it just reaches and touches and blesses you and inspires anyone who sees this video. And we're gonna sing, we put together a medley. All the songs that we do at Lion's Roar are original songs that I've written, and the Lord just downloads them to me faster than we can really do them, and it's just incredible, and these kids grab hold of them so quickly. So we put together, Beth helped me arrange a medley of 4 original songs that have been written in the last year for Lion's Roar. So we truly hope that you enjoy this video and are so blessed, and we just hope She Resounds goes far and wide and helps unlock more destinies like ours. In Jesus' name, be blessed.